Hey folks, and welcome to another West Yorkshire Retro Gamer recorded video here on YouTube. I just wanted to talk a little bit about players who are probably the most unpopular players in the recent history of Leeds United at this moment in time, and it's the ones known as the Exiles. As you'll see there, I've included all of the ones that kind of started this whole rigmarole in the first place. And ironically, it equates to what could be classed as a potential starting 11. And we can only imagine what this 11 could have done with one season in the Championship if they'd all stayed. Might have done alright. Might have been strong enough for promotion, but we'll never know. Anyway, as you can see there, some of them are already gone, so I'll just very briefly touch on these and then we'll move on to the ones that are still causing the problems. So Joe Robles, his contract was a short-term contract. He was signed as a backup keeper, so he's gone. He left at the end of his contract. He didn't make a massive hoo-ha about it, but I think I don't know, it didn't seem to be the most comfortable of contract expiring players that you've ever come across. It was a bit strange. But anyway, he's gone. Robin Koch initially went on loan. He was one of the ones that was part of the whole loan group, or the ones with the loan contract, loan clause in his contract, and he's since left permanently now, so he's gone. Tyler Adams did have the loan agreement in his contract, or loan clause in his contract, but Bournemouth ended up getting him, and we got about 20 million, so he's gone. Sinisterra, similar situation. He actually played the first couple of games. Excuse me, sorry. I think I'm possibly coming down with a bit of a cold. I do apologise. He did initially go on loan to Bournemouth, and we got Jason Anthony on loan going the other way. But according to the details, these two deals were actually separate, and so Bournemouth wanted to make it permanent with Sinisterra anyway, and so we got about 20 million for him. So he's gone. And then finally Rodrigo Moreno, I think it was like he was the highest earner at the club at the time on £100,000 a week. We simply had to get him off the books. All of the player contracts would have been reduced down by 50% anyway, to compensate for the lack of money that you get in the Championship. And obviously with Rodrigo being on a hefty £100,000 a week, he was never going to take a 50% pay cut and play in the Championship on 50 grand a week. So he left and went to the Middle East, I think. So he went. So we were then left with the other six: Rasmus Christensen, Max Wober, Diego Llorente, Mark Rocker, Jack Harrison, and Brendan Aronson. So I had a look at the length of the contracts that are remaining for these players, and as you can see, they've all got a bit of time remaining. Christensen, 3 years remaining on his original deal. I do apologise if any of these figures are wrong. This is just what I've been able to find out on the internet, so some of these could be wrong, but hopefully not. So Christensen, 3 years on his deal. He has had most recently a loan spell with Roma. Was starting to get some game time under Mourinho, but he left. De Rossi came in, and De Rossi hasn't used him. Showed signs of doing quite well as a wing back, but as a right back, very, very poor. With 3 years remaining, we bought him for approximately £10 million. You would think that with that amount of time left on his contract, we might be able to recoup some of that money. I personally think that he will go on loan again, not necessarily to Roma, but if there's any club out there that is willing to stump up the wages that he's on, I think he's likely to go out on a different loan elsewhere. Moving on to Max Wober, he went on loan to Gladbach, and Gladbach were very happy with him. They definitely want him back. Now, with our failing to get into the Premier League, where we could have then demanded that we get some money back for him, we bought him again for about 10 or 12 million, and I think that because of the season that he'd had for Gladbach, we were looking at around 15-16 million, to make a small profit on him. Gladbach have basically said that Leeds are pricing them out of a deal. I mean, if it were me, if we had been promoted, I would have probably just accepted, what we paid for him, if Gladbach could afford that, so around 10 or 12 million, but I don't even think they could afford that. So I think that Wober will probably go out on loan again, probably elsewhere. He might get a move to maybe a bigger club in Germany. And again, I think that another loan will probably occur. I hate to say this, but as much as I hated the idea of them going on loan and not being sold when we initially got relegated, from a financial standpoint, it almost makes sense for them all to go out on loan again, as long as the wages are covered by the clubs that they're going on loan to, and then on the basis that we do everything we can to get promoted this next coming season, we then sell them for as much money as we can in an attempt to avoid making heavy losses. None of these players were massively cheap. They were all bought for minimum 10 million, and in some cases a minimum of 20 million. So we need to make sure that we're not making heavy losses on these players in terms of an overall package. We could make a loss on one as long as we make a profit on another to balance out. So moving on to Llorente now. This is a bit of a complicated one. He went on loan to Roma. Again, under Mourinho, was starting to find his feet at Roma, and Mourinho was quite happy playing him. De Rossi then took over as manager, didn't favour Llorente. There was rumours that PSG were interested in getting Llorente. But again, we signed Llorente originally for about 18 million. And Leeds won't want to make a massive loss. Now the rumours that have been going around is that Llorente might go for as little as 4.5 million, which would be a huge loss. We don't really want to be making a loss of any more than 10 million on any player that we've bought, realistically. So this could potentially be a problem. Now, so obviously a club like PSG can certainly afford 18 million, and there was a rumour that he was on track for being sold for somewhere close to that, if he was to go to PSG. However, what Roma were looking at was buying him for that 4.5 million and then selling him to PSG for 18 million, so that they then make a profit and Leeds make a loss. Which, if that goes down, that to me is unacceptable. It's horrendous business. It's horrendous dealings with whatever's gone on with the contract negotiations. This was obviously dealt with by our former employee, whose name we won't mention, just because it makes me angry. And ultimately this is where we're at with it. So Llorente is one of the most complicated situations out of any of these players. Moving on to Marc Roca. He went on loan to Betis. Now, bearing in mind with Llorente as well, there is still 2 years remaining on his contract. So again, there is still a bit of negotiating power, but we can't leave it any later than next summer, because then he's down to his last year remaining. If it goes another year, he goes for free. So, that's the deal there. Mark Rocker, 2 years remaining on his as well. So a similar situation to Laurenti in terms of length of contract remaining. Rocker went on loan to Betis. We signed Rocker for around £10 million. Again, it's unsure as to whether Betis can afford 10 million to make the deal permanent. And again, because we haven't been able to secure a place in the Premier League, there's no reason really for Betis to force a permanent deal. They'll be quite happy to just get him on loan again, for another year, and then see where things are at. Again, you'd like to think that a guy that's had a decent season and is on the peripheral of the Spain squad, that Leeds might be able to make that 10 million back and not make any kind of loss on him, but that again remains to be seen. Jack Harrison, this is another complicated one here. He's got a long time remaining on that contract. He signed a new one, which, as far as I'm aware, it was a bit like Laurenti. He signed a new contract. But obviously with Jack Harrison, he joined Leeds on, I think it was 3 consecutive loan spells before we made it permanent for about £15 million. And obviously at that point, he then signed a long contract, and then we obviously got relegated. So it might even be his original contract, because obviously we'd had him for quite some time anyway. Now, he joined Everton. The rumours were that Villa were interested as well. I almost kind of wish that he'd gone to Villa because they've got more money to spend. But anyway, he went to Everton. Everton have got all these bloody financial problems going on. They've already been docked some points going into the new season, as far as I know. Unless that docking of points has happened in the season just gone, I'm not sure. But with that, it ultimately means that Harrison's got a long time left on his contract, meaning that Leeds do have some negotiating power here. Everton are not in a financial position to buy Harrison for the reported asking price of around 20 to 25 million. I think Harrison's good enough for us to command that fee. The contract, with the amount of time remaining, suggests that we can command that kind of fee. He has been on the verge of being in the interest of Gareth Southgate's England squad, but that was when he was playing for Leeds. His season at Everton has been very hit and miss. Some Everton fans telling him to go back to Leeds. It's not been the best loan spell that he's ever had. And this is the inconsistency that comes with Jack Harrison. On his day, he's a very decent player, but his day is hit and miss. So, what remains with the future of Jack Harrison? I can only assume, with that amount of length of time remaining on his contract, he's the one out of this bunch that we really do have the most power with. We don't need to sell him on the cheap. We can try and command a 20 million fee. We can afford to wait until we get promoted, as long as we are promoted in the next season or two, back to the Premier League. And we can still command a strong fee for him and not make any kind of loss. The question is, where's he going to go for this new season? Do Everton exercise some kind of loan agreement again? Or does Harrison look to go elsewhere and probably seek a loan move elsewhere? He won't play in the Championship. His mum's already confirmed that. And again, would Leeds want any of these players back? Would the fans want any of these players back? I would suggest no. Harrison's the one that's disappointed me the most, because I actually thought, Harrison might be the one kind of player out of this list of 11 that might actually, show some backbone and actually, fight to get Leeds back to the Premier League and actually kind of show the kind of player that he can be, and also, just just fix the wrong that he was part of. You know, all 11 of these contributed to Leeds getting relegated, and none of them have shown any spine whatsoever, any testicular fortitude to to get the club back to where most fans believe we should be. And they just they're just left for their own for the betterment of their own career. And the thing is that all right, they haven't had to play in the Championship, but have their moves been massively successful? I don't think so. Not really. There's not any of these players that have that can honestly say that they've had an amazing season. One or two have had good seasons, but none of them world class. So, when you look at it really, if all 11 of these had stayed, I mean, who knows? What could Farker have done with this bunch? It would certainly have been probably the strongest 11 on paper in any team in the division. Again, very much on paper. But football's played on grass, it's not played on paper. So, yeah, Harrison's the one where we've got the most bargaining tools. We've got the strongest power over him at this moment in time. He's not going to, I don't think it's a case of his contract running down to the point of him going on a free transfer. I don't think it'll come to that. There's plenty of time to get his situation sorted out. And then finally, Brendan Aronson, the player that doesn't believe that he is a lightweight, the player that believes that he is trying to buy fouls to gain an advantage for his team. Grow up, kid. Seriously. Just toughen up that little bit, right? If Brendan Aronson just stopped being a freaking lightweight, he could actually be a reasonable player. There is a player in there, but my God, is he soft. If it was a windy day, he'd fall over. It's ridiculous. A player of that age should be a lot tougher. Look at Willie Nonto, right? He's smaller than Aronson, but he's a tough little flipping bull. Is Willie Nonto? He's built that bit stockier, that bit tougher, that bit stronger. There's nothing on Aronson. He's for a footballer, he's stick thin, for Christ's sake. He needs to toughen up. He just needs to get to the gym and just toughen up a little bit and stop falling in and around the flipping D in front of the box trying to get penalties and failing miserably. The referees can see right through it. It's so frustrating. He showed glimpses of what he was capable of when he was at Leeds, but only mere glimpses. And bearing in mind, we paid over £20 million for him. Probably the most frustrating player on the entire list here, to be honest. So anyway, he had a very poor loan spell with Union Berlin. And, really, should have done better, but again, continued to back himself in terms of, why he was going down so softly and all this kind of thing. And just not heeding the advice of the people who manage him. So, for that reason, really, he's got to stop being so bloody stubborn and just take a little bit of advice, and he might end up having a more successful game. Now, towards the end of the season, he actually started to show some glimpses again of what he can do for Berlin, and finished his loan spell probably the best that he had in the entire loan spell itself. Again, 3 years remaining, so there's a bit of time remaining for us to get back up to the Premier League and try and get something in place so that we can get some of that money back. Because no one's going to buy him for 20 million, not under the current circumstances. But he does have age on his side. He's still not even in his mid-20s really. He might be about 24 going into the new season. But there's, with that, he might not even be that actually. So he's definitely got age on his side. which definitely equates to being able to go in Leeds' favour of trying to get some money back for him. But yeah, this overall situation is quite damaging to the club. Really, it's quite damaging to Leeds United. The fact that 6 of these 11 are still on Leeds United's books. We've got to negotiate them getting out of the club again for this coming season. Because some of these right now, as things stand, some of these are coming back to Leeds. Unless a loan period can be put in place for them again somewhere, or if we can sell them for the kind of price that Leeds are going to be looking to get back for them. Because again, we can't afford to be getting losses on these. The only option that Leeds will have, if we do make any losses on this bunch, is by selling the likes of Somerville, Rutter and Nonto for prices that were at least what we got for them in the first place. Now we can make a comfortable profit on Somerville. We only bought him for $1 million, but we paid over 30 million for Rutter. No club's going to buy Rutter for over 30 million whilst he's playing in the Championship. We'd probably break even at best. Because I think we probably still could get 30 million for Rutter. He's had an excellent season. And he's still very young. He'll be like 22 going into the new season. And then Nonto, I mean, Christ, has he turned 20 yet? I'm not even certain. But he's a full Italy international. So again, we could probably get at least 20 million, at least 30 million for him. Now there is the possibility of getting approximately 100 million for those 3 combined, and so that would then help to offset any losses that are made on this bunch. I'm hoping that the club will do everything possible to keep Archie Gray. The likes of Gray and Ampadu and Gruev and Melier, just to name a few, are still of a good age. And I don't want those guys leaving. If we're going to start building a future again in at Leeds United. So realistically, if we do have to sell that dangerous attacking trio of Somerville, Nonto and Rutter because of the seasons they've just had, then so be it. That then gives us around 100 million there or thereabouts to potentially spend on rebuilding the squad, but also to offset any losses that are made on this motley crew here. So it's a complicated situation. It's one that the Leeds United board and directors and financial people are going to have to deal with. They're going to have to communicate with Daniel Farke as to what Daniel wants to see happen with these guys. I honestly don't think any of them have a future at Leeds. I think they've all dug their hole and are sinking in it, quite frankly. I don't want to see him back. The one possible that I wanted to maybe see back was Jack Harrison until his mum decided to pipe up for him. What a ridiculous situation. But it is the situation now. So I don't want any of these coming back. I don't care how good they are. Leeds need to move on. These lot need to move on. I don't know why these lot haven't made it easier for themselves to move on. The big obvious reason would be that they don't want to miss out on the money that they're earning on these contracts. But are they feeling so insecure that they wouldn't get a contract as good as what they're on at Leeds United? Well, that's down to them not playing good enough then, isn't it? That's down to them. That's totally on them. That's not on Leeds. But ultimately, it's Leeds that still pay their wages. So we need them to go to clubs that will pay the wages for the season, and we go from there with it. But yeah, Leeds fans, leave your thoughts. Leave your thoughts. Got Leeds United on the brain. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Please be respectful about it. We're all entitled to opinions on this, and if you disagree with my opinions, absolutely fine. If you disagree with them, put your own opinions in there. This is something that can be discussed. It's not something that we all support the same team here, Leeds fans. So give your own opinions on it. Let's not fight over it. There's no point. It won't get us anywhere. If do any of you want any of these players to stay at Leeds? Do you want them to actually fight for a place in the Championship? Is it a case that because we still currently own these 6 players that it would be 6 less signings that Farker would have to make potentially? Is it seen that way? Would any of these 6 add depth to the squad if the fans could potentially get behind these players, considering the way that these players have treated the club, and ultimately the way these players have treated the fans? Is there any redemption? Is there any way back for these players? I personally don't think there is. At the end of the day, as fans, we'll back Farker as much as we can, and, because we all want Leeds to get promoted again. So whatever decision the club or Daniel Farker makes regarding these players, then I'm sure that we'll back it. But if any of them do wear the Leeds kit again, it would be quite a surprise. And I mean, when you look at it, Christensen maybe as a right wing back, but Farker doesn't really use wing backs. He likes his full backs to overlap the winger, but doesn't really use wing backs as such. Verber could obviously do a job at centre back and could deputise at left back, but his attitude's terrible. And actually, if you look at Verber's club history, he's had a lot of clubs for a guy that's only going to be 25 going into the new season. He's never really stuck around anywhere. Llorente, he's going to be 30, 31, something like that. So he's obviously highly experienced. But again, it's just another one of those. Rocker, another experienced player. I honestly didn't think Rocker was that good when he was at Leeds. I thought he was very, very, very limited. Didn't seem to do very much, went missing in games. I wasn't all that impressed. Harrison, especially if we're going to lose the likes of Somerville, Rutter and Nonto, Harrison could obviously do a job at Championship level. I think he got like 10 goals and 10 assists last time that he played in the Championship. He's obviously very, very useful and quite experienced for his age now, really. But again, the attitude shown from his mum basically shows the attitude that Jack's showing to Leeds at this moment in time, if her comments are accurate. And then Aronson needs to mature mentally as well as physically. If he's going to get anywhere, it's all very well believing your own hype. But when you've got so many people telling you otherwise, again, it's a totally different matter, isn't it? So, could anyone from this 11 have helped Leeds get back to the Premier League? Quite possibly. But, like Sinisterra even played the first couple of games and got a goal as well, if I remember. But, no. Angus Kinnear gave his opinions on the Square Ball podcast about these players, and you could tell even Angus was getting angry. So I think that just about says it all, really. So he basically said none of these players are going to be on the Leeds United Christmas card list, that's for sure. So that just about says it all, doesn't it? So yeah, I'll leave it there, folks. Big thank you, as always, for all your support. We are only 1 subscriber away from 100 subscribers on YouTube, so if you do like the content, if you want to see more football content, more video game content, then do please hit the subscribe button. It's free to do, and it will help the channel massively. Be that 100th subscriber. Why not? But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.